Holy City Center Radio is episode 399, and I am your host, Christian Sanger. Today is Monday, August 4th, 2025. What's up, everyone? I hope you had an amazing weekend and have a great week ahead. Welcome back to the show. I really appreciate you coming back. Or if this is your first time, thanks so much for joining us. We've got another interview today. I know we've all of a sudden just had a rush of interviews, which is great. And this one is really going to be focused on the Nexton area of Somerville, or the downtown Nexton area of Somerville, which has been a development underway for several years now, and they still have plenty of things on the way. And the person telling us all about it is Thomas Troy. He is the president and director of Charbel Development Corporation, which is a real estate development firm. They have over 40 years of experience, and they've worked on communities, whether similar or a little different than Nexton, in places like New Jersey, New York, and now, of course, South Carolina. And again, the one that we're going to be talking about here in the Palmetto State is Nexton in Somerville. So there's a lot to learn here. For those who don't live in that area, you'll hear about the different types of businesses and amenities and things like that they have, and also learn about what's coming and kind of see the plan that they have for that area. So it was really informative, and I hope you enjoy it. So without any further delay, let's get into that interview. And as promised, joining me now is Thomas Troy, President and Director of Charbel Development Corporation. And we have a lot to talk about today. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
It's good to be here, Christian. Thank you. Nice to meet you virtually. And I'm looking forward to a nice conversation.
Yes, me too. And it's very nice to meet you virtually as well. So let's get right into it. What made you, and of course, by extension, your company, want to take on the Downtown Nexton project?
Our company is it'll be 42 years old in January. We started out as a small single-family residential developer in the central New Jersey, Greater Princeton marketplace. And about 25 years ago, we got into one of the, I think it's still the largest, certainly one of the first, mixed use. Back then they called it traditional neighborhood development, very walkable, very pedestrian oriented. Anyway, based on our experience there, we started looking at other opportunities in the country where the growth dynamic was such that we could try that type of project. And we were very careful about where we looked. We looked in the Carolinas, North and South, and Florida, starting right before the crash in 2008, and continued looking. Long story short, we liked the Charleston market very much. Anecdotally, my son was born in Charleston in '94, so that was my first real experience to the city. Obviously, there have been a lot of changes between then and when we actually started looking again in 2010 and 11. We still are looking at other opportunities, but we pursued a number of other opportunities prior to the Nexton site. We were very fortunate in 2019. We happened to be in Charleston meeting with our brokers and looking at a number of other opportunities when the downtown Nexton parcel came back on the market. The original developer was Westrock, and they had an agreement in place with a larger commercial developer for the same parcel. But the vision under that scenario was, I want to call it, for lack of a better term, a power center, big box, shopping mall kind of hybrid, which you could understand given the location adjacent to the interstate and in between the two exits. So it had some logic behind it, but that deal went south, and the property went back to the developer. We had an opportunity to look at it, and frankly, we looked very quickly, and we liked what we saw. We were able to finalize the transaction right at the end of 2019, I think in December. So the interest was piqued primarily because we saw the dynamic of what's happened in and around Nexton and that part of the Charleston market on the I-26 corridor. We looked at the background growth, not just in residential, but also in the industrial and the manufacturing and the job growth that was happening there between, we all know what Boeing has done at the airport, but then you look at what's happening up where Volvo is and where Redwood is going and some of the other larger manufacturing hubs and distribution centers. All of those things kind of led to a sense that there was not just residential growth, but some sustainable, diverse economic growth that we felt we could look at as a longer term foundation and justification for what we wanted to do with downtown Nexton. Sorry for such a long-winded answer, but I wanted to give you the background on that.
No apology needed. That was great. And so you found this area, decided to start the project, and over the last handful of years, I mean, a lot has already been done. So folks may have an idea of what's there and what the goal is, but what is your goal for that development, and how do you see, Low Country residents or visitors, utilizing that area now and also in the future?
One of the things that we try to do with this project is to become something that would add another dimension to the development pattern that's already there. You can look in Nexton, you can look in Cane Bay and some of the other larger planned communities in that quadrant of the market and see, there's no shortage of single family home, whether mid-market, upper market. There's age-restricted development happening there. You've got Del Webb and a couple of the other larger national builders building their version of that. There's townhome development. There's multifamily development. And one of the things that we didn't see in any of the planning that we looked at was any meaningful type of higher density mixed use development. And that's really why we saw downtown Nexton, for lack of a better term, as kind of the hole in the donut. What we're trying to achieve there is something that will provide a little bit different lifestyle opportunity than what's already there. Primarily, when I say that, I mean the mixed use residential over ground floor, non-residential offers a number of different opportunities. And drawing from our experience here in central New Jersey over the last 25 years, the idea of being able to, come down from your apartment and walk to a restaurant, walk to a barber shop or a salon, walk to an ice cream place, walk to your dry cleaner. Those are the kinds of things that we didn't see readily available, and one normally doesn't in a typical suburban development pattern. But in order to make that work, you need the background density that will support it. And I mean, not just within the context of our land plan. And within our plan, I should back up a minute, we have a total of just under 100 acres gross. If you take out the ponds and a few wetland areas, we're down to somewhere around 80 acres of development. But within that 80 acres, we've already got two apartment communities that are completed and operational by another developer that we sold those parcels to. We have a third parcel for another 189 units, which we're closing on towards the end of the summer. And then we're developing our own about 190 residential units in the mixed use pieces. So within our project, there's going to be somewhere around 1,100 multifamily units.
Wow.
primarily flats. One of our developers will be doing a build to rent townhome. So the idea with this project is to do something that isn't already there, and do it at a scale that's large enough that it will be able to support not only the residential community within downtown Nexton, but obviously to draw people from everywhere else in Nexton and the Somerville, greater Somerville community to the services and the retail and restaurant that we're providing in the community.
Nice. Yeah. So you're talking about all the different types of homes and living quarters that people can have. And you also mentioned, hey, you can just leave out your front door and be able to access all these different businesses. So what current businesses are currently in Nexton, and what ones are coming, if you can share that information?
I can share. I'm happy to share. Our first building has been completed for about 8 months now. We have 64 apartments in there. I'd love to tell you that they're all rented and occupied, but we're getting there slowly. We're a little bit less than half occupied there, but they're coming. The ground floor, we have a Rita's ice cream operation. They're doing very well. We have a cafe called Wakey Bakey. It's owned by the same folks that own the baked shop already in Nexton Square. That's a nice cafe. We have a facial salon from an operator who actually has another store in Mount Pleasant. We have a nail salon, also another local operator who has a few other salons called iNails. We have a day spa called Revive. She does light therapy and saunas and massages and whatnot. Those are the 5 tenants that are open already. We have in our end cap a larger footprint in a restaurant and bar called Bourbon Bar. They'll be opening. I want to say right around the end of the year. We're in there doing their upfit right now. We also have a wine and liquor store coming in. They're in fit out there as well. So those are the existing and upcoming tenants. We have a couple more spaces in that building that are not yet rented, but we're negotiating. We're looking at a potential operator for a Pilates studio, and then there's also a woman's hair salon that we've been talking with back and forth. So those 2 spaces, once they're filled, that'll take care of the first building. We're under construction right now with 2 mirror image buildings directly across Metro Boulevard. They're about a year and 4 months out from completion, and they'll also have similar ground floor spaces. So when those 3 are done, they'll be about just under 50,000 square feet of ground floor non-residential space. And what does that mean? The old story. We try to get the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker, but these days there's a lot of service. As you can tell by the existing tenants, we believe a fair amount of food users will be coming in. But one of the things that we've experienced in some of our other mixed use communities is when you start to really feel the downtown vibe that you get when you see the buildings at that scale. These are typically 5-story buildings. They start to feel a little bit more dense. I don't necessarily mean to say urban in a pure urban sense, but they feel different than a typical suburban retail establishment. Sure. It tends to draw not only the retailers and the food, but one of the things we're seeing here in New Jersey is we've attracted a fair amount of healthcare providers, whether it's some of the major health systems that are taking storefronts for different specialties. We have dentists, we have physical therapists. Occasionally we'll get like an insurance company or an Edward Jones or a tax provider. Those are all the same kind of things that you would see in a normal storefront in a downtown. Those are the types of the breadth of users that we would expect to see as the project evolves through the next couple of years.
Wow, so a lot going on, a lot already there, a lot coming, and it's a little something for everyone. What excites you most about this development? What do you think is going to be the most exciting part, whether for yourself or you think people are really going to be, into?
Well, that's a good question, and thank you for asking. One of the things that we really derive a lot of gratification from is uh, while we're in business to generate a profit, just like everybody else, one of the things that we like to do with projects like this is as we function as the master developer, if you will, we are over time selling out various parcels. As I mentioned earlier, there's a couple of completed apartment projects and others. We also have some retail pads that have been sold. We have a Fuo Korean barbecue, which is under development now. They'll be opening, I understand, sometime early fall. We have a hotel site that's been acquired already by a group out of the Mid-Atlantic. They're in the process of finalizing permits and construction documents now. We understand there's a good likelihood they'll be underway there probably fourth quarter or early first quarter next year. The other thing I didn't mention, but we've already completed 2 office buildings on the other side of the project that are along Brighton Park Boulevard. We have a lease finalized with MUSC for about 9,000 square feet for a pediatric and cardiology practice. So back to your question, what do we derive the most satisfaction from? I think when we see the moving pieces all start to function together, what does that mean? The people who live here, both within the project and adjacent to it in other parts of Nexton, start to utilize it and become more of a support base for not only our retail but the other pads. When we see the office tenants, both the people who work in the office buildings and the patients who are going to the doctor or the other clients for the other professional uses that'll be there, when we see them all starting to integrate, not only with the main reason why they're there, which is for a professional appointment, but also to take advantage of the downtown, or you see the office workers walk to the restaurants, or people using the walking trails that we're connecting around our ponds, and the public, starting to interact with it that way. I think it takes a lot of patience to develop these types of projects. They're not a simple one and done. You walk in, you build 300 units at one time, you put in the clubhouse and the pool, and you walk away. We have a different philosophy about these types of communities. While we're happy to see the other components being developed by our partners, development partners in the project, we are going to take a little bit longer look and a little bit longer timeline with our development, and we think that's how it gets to the highest and best value, when we can see the background development happening to support what's going on. That, to me, that's the most satisfying part of a project like this, is when you really see it start to click and people appreciate it for what it is, and perhaps even start to refer to it as a downtown as well. Look, it's a little bit of a stretch to call it a downtown, but when you're in a suburban environment, we try to do something that will, distinguish this project from a lot of the other development that's happening out there. And when you do vertical mixed use, people start to think along that mindset. We're not trying to emulate Charleston. We're not trying to emulate, a true classic urban area. But when you're out in a true suburban context, we think it's helpful to distinguish what this is by virtue not only of the amount of density that we're building and the diversity of uses that we're building, but also to try and create a sense of place.
And you mentioned patience, with the project, and that kind of leads into my next question, which is, well, South Carolina in general, but specifically the Low Country, the Charleston area. I mean, they're growing very quickly and have been for a few
Yes.
years, and Nexton, of
Yes.
course, is part of that. How do you approach, long-term development with that in mind, that it's continuing to grow here?
Look, development and growth is one of the primary drivers of our industry, the development industry in general, the housing and shelter industry specifically. Clearly, as you said, the Charleston market has undergone quite a long period of sustained growth, and I think that's only going to continue in the future, given the background fundamentals. It's a very nice place to live. It's a nice place to locate a business. The logistics are excellent for anybody in any kind of a business, and frankly, the people are very nice, and the lifestyle is very nice. How do we approach that? We look for opportunities that give us a chance to do what we're good at. We're home builders initially, will always be, fundamentally have a home builder mentality. I think that bodes well for what we do now, what we've evolved to. But we take a longer approach than some of our brethren, whether they're public builders or larger private builders. There's guys that only do apartments. There's guys that only do single family. There's guys that do age restricted. There's a lot of segments within our industry. We try and do things that give us an opportunity to do what we're good at, and that a lot of our other guys they'll do a piece or a part of it, but they won't do the whole thing. Certainly, we're not the only guys who do that, and mixed use development takes a lot of shapes and a lot of sizes and a lot of scales. But what we see in the Charleston market are certain opportunities that will allow us to make these types of investment for a longer term. But having said that, we're also aggressively pursuing certain other opportunities. We've been looking at things in and around the Navy base for years, even before we found Nexton. We were looking at parcels there. We looked over at West Edge on the peninsula, and still are looking at opportunities there for either redevelopment or repositioning or adaptive reuse. We don't have a set model of projects that we only look at. We look at things in the suburban market. We look at things in an urban market. We look at land development deals, and we look at build to hold and merchant building deals. So we kind of morphed ourselves. We're not the biggest company around. Right now, I think our head count is somewhere around 30 people. At some points, we've been double that, and our volume fluctuates given the market. We don't have a necessarily a mandate to do certain volume in any given year. We're a lot more flexible with where we decide to make our investments and when we decide to activate those investments, or whether we make investments for the longer term and just land bank.
Wow, so a lot going on that's already planned, and maybe some other things in the area. So you guys are staying busy in this area. Is there anything about the Nexton project that I haven't asked, or that you would just like to share with people that you haven't mentioned so far?
I don't know. I mean, we've been there. It'll be 6 years at the end of this year. We've seen the amount of growth that's happened. I think the Nexton plan, while there's no shortage of large scale planned development, anywhere in the country, having cut our teeth in the Northeast, where it's probably the one area in the country where you don't see as much of that same type of development, where you have a large land developer come in and then parcel things out. We see the Nexton area as, in my mind, one of the more successful developments. in the country. I think they've won a few awards to kind of prove that out. But
Mm-hmm.
I think, given the scale of it, given the way the infrastructure came together, given the way that they're phasing it, I think it's a very successful execution of a very good plan. One of the things that we liked was that not only was the location of our little piece of Nexton very conducive for this type of development between two exits off of 26 and with two existing completed roadways, gave us not only visibility but access and connectivity. The fact that the infrastructure is there and is being executed and brought online when needed, and I'm talking as recently as the completion of a signalized intersection up at Nexton Parkway. Sometimes growth is a very good thing, but sometimes it's too much of a good thing, and you hear that complaint pretty much anywhere, and certainly in the greater Charleston market. You hear it about traffic, you hear it about drainage and other physical things that have to happen in order to properly accommodate that growth. One of the things, to your question on Nexton, that I found very encouraging was that the infrastructure was ahead of the curve rather than behind it. And I think it remains that way. I think you'll see a build out of the key infrastructure that will be very timely relative to the amount of development that's happening there. So that's certainly something that I look for whenever we see an opportunity like this, is how long are we going to have to wait for things, or even worse, are you going to start hearing, words like moratoria and other types of things to slow down development? I know that, that's a big issue in Mount Pleasant, and,
Yes.
perhaps rightly so. And you start to see it in other places. But fortunately, both in Somerville and in Nexton proper, there's been a real, I think, proactive attitude about getting this infrastructure in place.
Yeah, a lot has been done, plenty to come, as we've talked about, and I really appreciate you giving me some background, as well as letting us all know what is coming as well. It's an exciting time in that area, and I really appreciate you taking the time today to tell me all about it. All right, that'll do it for this edition of Holy City Center Radio. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to Thomas Troy for joining me. It was great learning more about Nexton. I felt like I had a good idea, what that development was all about, and I posted about it. I get press releases, I see social media posts, but I still learned a lot. You always learn more when you talk to the people involved. And it was interesting hearing from someone who's behind the development of it, who really knows everything that goes into a huge project like that. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you to Lindsay Marie Collins with LMC Sound System for producing this and every episode of Holy City Center Radio. And thank you to Tyler Boone, whose music you hear in each and every show. I will be back with you later this week. We've got some news to get you caught up on. I'm already looking forward to it. But until then, good night and good luck.